Redditors with thin walls, what have you heard in your apartment? In college, I lived in a crappy apartment nearby the school that was mostly populated by students. Halfway to class one day, I realized I forgot a book and had to rush back to my apartment to get it. As I was running up the stairs, which shared a wall with the stairs in the next door apartment, which mirrored my own, I could have sworn I heard someone yelling. I ignored it and ran to my room to grab my book. As I clambered downstairs, again I heard yelling, and I paused to listen. I heard some unintelligible moaning, and eventually heard the words "help me" weakly groaned from the stairs next door. I rushed out and tried their door, but it was locked. I totally forgot about my class and ran to the apartment management office, hoping that someone was there. A manager was, thank goodness, and after I explained the situation, she grabbed her master keys and we booked it back to my neighbor's place. She opened the door and the poor guy was laying in the stairwell. It was one of the ones that goes up halfway to the second floor, then turns 90 degrees for the rest of the way, clearly having fallen. I called 911 while the manager ran over to the guy. Ambulance came and picked him up, and I later learned that he had fallen down the stairs after passing into a brief diabetic coma. I guess he hadn't eaten in some time. I don't know too much about how diabetes works. Anyhow, to this day, I feel grateful that I forgot that book. That poor guy could have died, slumped halfway down the stairs with his face in the carpet. I was grateful for the thin walls. Just for that though. Thin walls suck. Wow, it was good you went back. You should definitely feel proud. My old neighbor was a cam girl and I could hear absolutely everything she said in every single session for a good 4 months. Pretty much learned the names of her clients. I work from home and it was always a gamble whenever I had to meet with someone virtually. I once heard a former roommate laughing with his then girlfriend about how they're fricking me over on money. Turned out they were taking my utility portion and buying various games and alcohol. Instead of confronting them, I confirmed what they said with the utilities company. They hadn't paid the bill in 2 months, and I moved all my stuff out that day while they were at work. For good measure, I took myself off the lease and told them about the GF that had been there 6 months. Lost the battle but you won the war. Freaking losers. My downstairs neighbors are a couple with a 1-year-old boy. The baby's room is right under mine. They speak so sweetly to him I'm not even mad that I can hear them so clearly. One morning the dad went in to get the baby out of bed and I hear him go, "Can you say daddy? Can you say daddy?" And in the tiniest little voice I heard daddy. My heart melted. So good to hear a story about good parents, instead of the countless crappy parent stories I've just scrolled through. Years ago I had an upstairs neighbor. At 2 AM every night, I would hear something sprint across the entire apartment. I realized 3 things. It was very fast, it took small strides, and it never deviated from its path. One day, I saw my neighbor outside and I said, "I don't know how you have energy at 2 AM. He responded with, "Dude, I've been working the midnight to 8 AM shift for 15 years. Doesn't bother me at all." That night, I watched him leave his house, drive off, and waited 2 hours. At exactly 2 AM, I heard what sounded like 2 feet hit the floor in his bedroom, and the marathon started. A few weeks later, I see him outside. I tell him what I hear at night and he says, "That's strange, no one has my keys, it's just me and my rabbit up there." I once heard an argument that went a little like this. "Stop treating me like I'm stupid. You asked if seahorses were mammals, Jessica. They give live birth." My upstairs neighbors taking turns zapping each other with a stun gun, hitting the floor, groaning in pain, and then laughing like Beavis and Butthead. I'm pretty sure I'd like your upstairs neighbors. I'd totally let myself be tased at least once. I actually manage an apartment complex where my office is surrounded by a 1-bedroom unit. The building is old and the walls are thin. The tenant that used to live in the unit was a quiet man but would frequently sing beautiful opera music. His voice was amazing and I loved it every time I heard him sing. Then one time I saw him in the halls and made the mistake of asking if he was the one who sang these beautiful opera songs. His face turned red but he confirmed that it was him. I told him that I always enjoyed it when I heard him sing and that it would always brighten my day. Never should have said anything because I never heard him sing again. I had a neighbor who was a professional opera singer. While chatting one day I made a comment about her singing. She got embarrassed and said she would start practicing in her bedroom or another location so as to not bother me. I had to all but beg her not to do such a thing as I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've heard and felt the neighbors upstairs freaking, and apparently they like to rearrange the furniture at least twice a week. My upstairs neighbors used to do the furniture moving thing. We both had studio apartments and it was a huge mystery to me how they could move what sounded like a warehouse full of furniture for an hour in such a tiny place. Heard the couple next door arguing. The wife was furious because she realized he had been cheating on her after she found out she had chlamydia. He tried to convince her that she must have been the unfaithful one. She still lives there. He doesn't. Not in my house, but I travel a lot for work and stay in a lot of hotels. So far my favorite was hearing someone banging around in the shower for a while, then this exchange. Loudly, "Hey, wash my balls." Louder, "Wash your own goddamned balls." Yelling, "Frick you, your pee stinks." They got quiet after that, probably because they heard me howling with laughter and realized people could hear them. We stopped at a hotel for the night on a road trip and didn't realize how awful it was until we arrived. Since we were only going to be there 12 hours total, we decided just to stay. Oh man, this one woman would start screaming and arguing with someone else, talking in a calm voice. Every 30 minutes to an hour, she'd calm down, and then suddenly she'd be screaming again. Never again. In our old apartment, our upstairs neighbor had extremely loud, theatrically enthusiastic fricking in the middle of the day. The puzzle was that he would stop in the middle and we'd hear him walk to where the bathroom is, stay there for a minute or two and then walk back and resume in the bedroom. It was the same pattern every time. We could never figure out what that was all about. Any ideas welcomed. See? I moved from far away, so I have a different state license plate than everyone else at the apartment complex. A couple of days ago I had my upstairs neighbor drunkenly ranting to his wife about what he thinks I'm up to. He's convinced that I'm on the run from something. I'm just in grad school, mayo. Grad school? For crime. I lived next to a guy who took care of his disabled girlfriend. She stayed home with a nurse while he worked to support them and pay for her healthcare. Everyone really admired him for it. He used to get drunk and tell her that if she doesn't start putting out he's gonna throw her butt out. I was expecting something nice and now I feel like I turned hard into a wall. An argument about money while I was doing the dishes. It ended with a slammed door and one of them on a piano, hitting the keys like a maniac. Some people read. Some people go get something to eat. Some people exercise. This mother relieves stress by going crazy on a piano. LOL. Angrily plays Mozart. My university accommodation had paper thin walls. You could hear people freaking 5 doors down, and I could hear my friends' music from even further away. Yeah, my college dorms were the same. My roommate asked from her room how to spell something, and our neighbor called to tell her how to spell it. It was hilarious to us. Gina, I love you. Gina, no. Gina, damn it, put the knife down at this point. Both the apartments adjoining to Gina's called the police. Gina's husband decided to spend the night elsewhere. Can you elaborate on the story? I'm curious. 1. Lots of freaking. 2. My presumably constipated neighbor trying to poop, aka 5 minutes of grunting and heavy breathing. 3. Someone snoring like what I can only describe as a diesel truck revving its engine. 4. A little girl practicing playing what I think was a violin every night for a while. 5. Someone blasting Middle Eastern music. I shazammed it and the song is called Mundian Tabaket. 6. What sounded like a woman forcing herself to puke, with lots of crying. IDK if she had food poisoning, or was bulimic or what. Apparently the song is Indian, not Middle Eastern. I honestly had no idea. That song is Indian, and very old, annoying, very abrasive tune. My sympathies. I lived next to a couple some years ago and they came home after a night out and started fighting about who was better at darts. I thought they were joking but it got pretty heated. Doors were slammed. Since people are asking, they were playing darts at the bar earlier that night. From what I could tell, they were playing as a team and the boyfriend wasn't pulling his weight and was super defensive about it. Had an off night. Allegedly, the girlfriend was mad he couldn't accept she was better. I'm no detective but think they had some relationship issues bigger than darts. I still don't know who thought it was a good idea to combine alcohol and darts. I heard the couple that used to live next door go through divorce. Their yelling got progressively worse until I realized that their relationship really wasn't healthy. Once she mentioned that they had split up and that she was moving, I was like, yeah, I know. More what my neighbor heard. I'm a deep sleeper and was an even deeper sleeper as a teenager. My phone alarm was going off for 30 minutes and my neighbors could hear it through the walls. Assumed it was a burglar alarm and called the police. Waking up to the police banging on my door was confusing. The alarm worked, just in a roundabout way. The way my old apartments were laid out, the neighbor's bedroom was right next to my kitchen dining room. One night, I hear them banging. Thin walls are thinner when the bed is hitting the wall. While I was fixing dinner, I just turned up the music and continued on with my life. 2 hours later, I was cleaning up, doing dishes, and generally tidying up when I heard the familiar thump 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 of banging. I think, good for them, and bag up the trash to take out. Thump thump thump. I open the door and take my bag of trash outside. As I'm walking out, I see the male half of my thumping neighbors walking in from his car. Walking back from the dumpster, I see a half-naked dude running out of the neighbor's apartment. They moved shortly after that. Hey, this answer is a bit too dramatic. That's cheating. When I was an older teenager, I had my own tiny apartment in the hood and a raging butthole gang member for a boyfriend. We would get in raucous fights and my downstairs neighbor would call the police. One time, I was crying quietly after a particularly bad fight that had gotten physical and I heard my neighbor arguing with her husband. No, I'm not going to mind my own business and ignore it. I don't care that he always comes back the next day and she forgives him. One day he's going to really hurt her or kill her and I'm not going to live with knowing that I sat there and did nothing when I knew a girl was being abused. I was naive and in love, I thought, and ignorant and young, and I had never considered it abuse. That felt so melodramatic, but I realized that my neighbor was right. Finally left him for good after that fight. So, good looking out random lady in East LA in 1999. I'm sorry for being the worst neighbor imaginable. This is the neighbor we all need. Couple upstairs would argue frequently. One particular evening, they had an epic battle. It was hours long. About 2 hours into the argument, 11 PM on a weeknight, we heard the woman shout, "First of all, that was the moment we knew sleeping wouldn't be restful that night. That was the moment we knew sleeping wouldn't be restful that night. Reason number 19, I think you're the worst, is how you wash the fricking dinner plates." I used to live in a sketchy building and my landlord lived right underneath me. My landlord was a weird guy and there were all kinds of rumors about him the whole time I lived there, but I just tried to chalk it up to gossip. There were a ton of homeless people in the neighborhood, which was fine. They were just part of the neighborhood and anyone who lived there knew them. A lot of days they would hang out on our front stoop, and no one really cared or made an issue out of it. Anyway, I would often hear knocks that sounded like they were coming from the windows, not the front door. I would try to run over and catch whoever it was but could never catch anyone in time. So one night I hear the knocking while I am in bed and it sounds like it's from the window right under me to my left, so I look down real quick, see one of the regular homeless guys in the neighborhood, and see my landlord open up the door and let him in. So I lay there listening, wondering WTF is going on, and as clear as day I hear the homeless guy say to my landlord, "I need something to eat. I was just wondering if you needed a back rub or something." That's when I realized all the rumors I had heard about my landlord and tried to brush off were actually true. My ex-neighbors never let their kids leave the house, and preferred to raise bubble children. The older son, 12 or 13, was pitifully fragile. One day I heard him crying because he crap on his own hands. "They warned me about you. I never should have married you, my 60-year neighbors." And recently a heated argument between different neighbors' adult kids. The son had caught his son, 5-year, playing doctor with his sister's daughter, 4-year. They argued very loudly about it in their back garden, which is completely surrounded by other houses and apartments. I think at least 30 households could hear it. Playing doctor means getting naked and comparing bits. The people above me bang at exactly 1 PM every day. I'm not here then most days, but when I am it sucks. They have the squeakiest bed ever and it's so loud it sounds like it's in my room. Our whole apartment can hear it. They really do invest in a better bed frame or whatever. Start playing Let's Get It On at 12:58 and slip a flyer from a mattress store under their door. My roommate talking to himself. I sometimes laughed quietly at his jokes. Since you all are asking, they're not really jokes, but just random, silly things he said. Our neighbors were once talking loud and I was nosy, so I put my ear up to the wall and realized she was reading him Harry Potter pretty enthusiastically and it made my heart melt. When I was in grad school I lived below a family with several young kids. The mother was great and we got along well. She was always apologetic about kid noise, but I didn't really mind. The compromise that worked for us was that it was okay for me to play an amplified guitar, as long as it wasn't late, because her kids liked it and would dance to it when they could hear it. Okay, that's great. D. My landlord frickin' his wife couple of times per week. She screamed like a porn star. They were on the first floor and I was on the second one. Sometimes if I'd walk above their bedroom and they heard it they'd stop for a couple of seconds and go right back to Boner Town after. So yeah, we were 3 guys living in the apartment and we'd often invite some girls over, friends, to have dinner and drinks, but we would usually stay up pretty late and it would be in the middle of the week. Pretty much once a week. They were the kind of girls who laugh talk pretty loud, and our landlord asked us if we were having orgies. He wasn't even kidding. Didn't know how to respond to that, so we just laughed it off and kept him wondering. I felt kinda bad for a previous neighbor of mine. A few times a week he got to hear my BF plowing me like a cornfield. I did my best to be quiet, but was told he could hear the different positions I was so loud. Neighbor worked a lot and hired a new sitter. New sitter invited 2 guys over. Kids were only 3 and 1. Heard her say if we leave to go to the corner store now, the kids will be fine alone for 20 minutes. And heard them talking about popping some of mom's Xanax and selling them. Then they promptly left. I walked out, knocked on the door and the 3-year-old boy came out. I called the police, went into the apartment, found mom's work number next to the sink and she was furious. Left work and came back home, and as she was walking up to thank me and the officers, the babysitter and guys came into the complex. Mind you, this was all within an hour, not 20 minutes lol. Mum whooped babysitter, then called babysitter's mom and she got another whoopin'. Got offered a sitting job after that and took it. LOL. Also have heard one of my neighbors talking in tongues and yodeling. Glad I don't live in apartment anymore. Not quite what I've heard, but more. Once I realized my previous apartment had very thin walls. My roommate and I would just yell at each other from our respective rooms if we needed something. It was great. No one had to leave bed. Hey Peter, man. Check out channel 9. My dad snoring like a bear, and my mum snoring like a walrus. If they argue, they snore out of sync, and if they have a nice day they snore in sync. It's really quite sweet. You're only with me for the crack. My next door neighbors, guys, they're not Irish. They're white trash Dartmouth folk in Nova Scotia. It's not quite a neighbor story, but I used to live next to a park and you'd hear the craziest stuff from the addicts who slept there at night. My favorite was 2 guys yelling at each other around 1 AM when this exchange happened. You're not a road dog. You don't deserve to be a road dog. Well, you're a rapist. I still don't know what a road dog is. My flatmates and I had a joke that if someone used the upstairs washroom we would shout, "Are you poopin'?" One day someone above our top floor, the 3rd floor was studio apartments, screamed, "How the heck do you always know?" I lived next to a guy who was schizophrenic. At first the stuff I would hear freaked me out, but after getting to know him I realized he was a really nice guy. There was some pretty sad stuff, but some of it could be funny too. My favorite was when his voice took on this righteous Southern preacher tone as he reprimanded all of his appliances like microwave oven. "Are you going to join me in the afterlife? No. Miniature refrigerator. Are you going to escort me through the valley of the shadow of death? I think not." And then my favorite, simply print a frick off. I lived in an apartment where the kids next door would begin kicking and banging on the walls and making all kind of noise on any given day, starting at around 6-7 am and continuing for hours. I eventually came to find out that their mother would lock them in a bedroom and leave for hours on end to do God knows what. The mother screaming at her eldest son, "Why don't you love me? You never do anything around here. You don't love your siblings. You're horrible." Name. Inaudible wailing. So that's fun. It's funny, my mind immediately went to some terrible stereotypes, but then I realized my mom said all the crap to me all the time, except the never doing anything. My downstairs neighbor, a 40-something Moroccan gentleman, playing various video game songs on his piano for his son who came to visit. It was very cute and wholesome. A lot of this is depressing stuff. Thank you for giving me some happiness. Pre-dawn hours. Blizzard outside. Everything's still and quiet. My roommate and I heard our neighbor on the other side of the firewall fart, wet and deep like a stifled baritone sax, and exclaimed to himself in a twisted combination of awe and disgust, "Oh my god." We burst out laughing, and hear him chime in with pride, "Did you guys hear that?" Vindicated that his fart was heard and forever lives in our memories. One day my neighbor was spontaneously singing the national anthem America and stopped midline and cussed because they messed up the words. So I sang the correct next line and they burst out laughing before coming back in and finishing the song with me. I've still never met that neighbor. 10/10 voice. I try to do this if I know the lyrics to a song. Don't really have a great voice though. Yesterday when I was taking a crap, my neighbor was blasting classical music on full volume. It was the most majestic and relaxing crap I've taken in a long time. Holy freaking crap. My parents told me stories about the apartment they lived in when I was a baby. The lady above us was a classically trained pianist and her music room was above my room. Apparently when I would start crying in my crib, she would start playing and I would go right to sleep. After my parents divorced, my dad stayed in the same apartment. A few years later when I went to visit him, I was about 10 or 11. I got to finally meet her for the first time. The woman who used to play me to sleep as a baby taught me how to play the piano 10 years later. I am sad to say I retained very little from our lessons, but I can play a mean chopsticks. That's obscenely wholesome. Sorry about the divorce, but it's still a sweet story. An ex-girlfriend as I lived in an apartment with upstairs neighbors would yell and scream at each other on a constant basis. It came to a head when the woman started beating their dog. We heard the poor dog yipping and howling and ended up calling the cops and they had their dog taken away. We also took in a kitten that they had that showed up at our door with its whiskers cut off and a cigarette burn on its head. The woman showed up at our door demanding her kitten back and backed down when we threatened to call the cops again. These people were not winners. They ended up being served an eviction notice eventually, squatted there anyway, and were arrested. I have no idea what happened to them after that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.